Welcome to Yelling Into the Void, a podcast about World of Warcraft. I'm Tevin Crody. This is Scott Daly. And man, oh man, we're going to have some opinions this week, I bet.
Uh-oh.
Well, Scott, let's get the opinions started off strong. Pineapple on pizza, how do you feel about that?
What are you doing? You trying to make half our audience hate me? Is that what we're doing?
I don't know. I feel like you should answer the question.
The answer is it's delicious, is the answer. I mean, here's the thing. I think the pineapple on pizza debate actually comes down to, do you like warm fruit or not? And that's really
true.
just what it is. Like, I don't think it's specific to pizza. I think it's just the people that don't like pineapple on pizza probably just don't like warm fruit in general, which is
That's
fine.
true. I like pineapple on pizza for the flavor. I don't love pineapple on pizza for the fruit.
Yeah, I mean, I love pineapple. I think pineapple is very good, and I also think pineapple is very good on pizza. Have you ever been to Hawaii?
I have not. I need to go.
The most delicious pineapple you will ever eat in your entire life. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Well, I think with all of that aside, there's a few more things that we need to talk about relating to World of Warcraft. Maybe
more important or less important? You be the judge.
I feel like it's more important, so we're just gonna call it that. But so I think the biggest thing that came out in WoW News today that I noticed was Drakthir Warriors. Maybe.
Yeah. So they released I think they called them like WoWcast or something. It's just like a dev interview hosted by an employee of Blizzard, and they talk about a bunch of stuff. This one was about like all the end game content, raids, delves, Mythic Plus. And one of the things they showed was the warband screen, and they showed a warrior dual wielding a Drakthir dual wielding two-hand axes. This is actually something we've known that they want to do for a while. I think they talked about this maybe when they first announced the War Within. They definitely said it will not be in at launch, but that they're going to be expanding the Drakthir race out to other classes, which is pretty cool. They still only have 2 visible items of equipment on them at any time, though. That seems like a problem.
Well, casting spells is what takes you into your dragon form. So I wonder if you're like a Drakthir warrior, or somebody who doesn't really have spells, can you just be human form the whole time, or your dragon form?
I don't know. I think I vaguely remember, and I might just be completely making this up, but I vaguely remember them also saying something to the effect of one of their long-term goals is to make Visage form, make like a toggle where you just stay in Visage form forever. Maybe that's just a dream of mine because I just don't like the look of Drakthir. Like, I played a Preservation Evoker a little bit in season 1, and I just like the dragon looks a little too derpy for me. I just can't get into it. So I actually, when they first announced this, I was like, you can't do that. You can't, because the Evoker like class talents are like largely based off of Drakthir racials. It won't work. You can't do that. And then I actually opened up the talent tree and looked through the class talent tree, and there's only like 2. There's only like 2 talents specific to racials that the Drakthir have, and they're both related to tail swipe and I guess there's also rescue. But even rescue, like, you could just I don't know. Like, I guess there's a couple. I think it's just the tail swipe and the rescue, I think, is all that there is, which I feel like you could just take those out of the evoker tree, give them something else, or maybe just only have the evoker tree, the one that buffs those abilities, and then just have other evokers other Drakthir just not get them. I mean, it's an easily solvable problem, I guess, is the thing to say.
Yeah, and I'm assuming what they're going to do is they're just not going to have tail swipe. They're not going to have wing buffet unless you're an evoker, and then maybe they'll add those back in later or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, because the risk here is that the evoker racials are actually like really powerful. They're like really good.
Yeah.
And so like giving a warrior that already has some pretty good AoE CC. Also they have tail swipe and wing buffet. Like, that's crazy, actually.
Yeah,
So
it'll be
I
crazy.
think that makes sense. Yeah.
uh, what about all the bugged stuff that was fixed today?
Yeah.
The warlocks. There's a monk bug that I've been running into that I'm interested to test and see if that's fixed.
Oh, I didn't even
For
hear
some
about this.
reason, if you cast your essence burst and then you spinning crane kick right after, your spinning crane kick just ends. Like
Okay.
it starts and then stops. I don't know why, but
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, what we got today was the launch patch, right? We got the I think it's technically 11.02. It's the War Within launch patch came out today, and it basically updated live with a lot of the changes they made on beta over the past few weeks, including the tank nerfs that we're going to be talking about a little bit later, including some bug fixes like warlocks apparently on pre-patch just were not functioning. They were just not working correctly at all, and they fixed that. Um, so yeah, I mean we're in this weird spot. It's like a week and a half till the expansion comes out.
Yeah.
There's not really a lot of specific things going on. Like that patch was a big patch today. It was an extended maintenance today. But like I don't know. What am I gonna do if I log into the game right now? Probably this is pretty much the same thing I've been doing the last few weeks, which is just kind of mess around in keys, get a feel for some new classes and things like that.
Well, there's definitely some interesting changes that happened with the patch today because um it- a very specific to Beast Mastery Hunter example. So there was a nerf on the live that essentially nerfed your dire beast. So you can summon either Haiti or you can summon Fenrir based on however many times you cast dire beast, and then those pop out. They buff your pets, they buff you, whatever. And they nerfed both of those special summons on live, but that never made it to beta ever. Like it was only ever nerfed on live, and then they nerfed on beta. They did like other specific targeted nerfs, but they only nerfed Haiti. They didn't nerf Fenrir. Or maybe it was the other way around. I'm not remembering correctly right now. But essentially, when those came together, we didn't know if they were going to be stacked nerfs. So we were going to have like the 20% nerf to both of them on top of the nerf that happened in beta, or if it was just going to override it. And it seems like it just overrode it, which is a good thing, because now it isn't just like way less damage, like 40% less damage from that. So yeah, that is definitely a weird patch cycle time, but
I'm not
I'm
gonna lie
for
to
it.
you. I have no idea what you just said. I didn't understand any of that at all. But
Anyways,
it's fixed. That's the important thing.
yeah, yeah. I was about to say that the moral of the story is we're in a weird time where we're getting everything that we want from beta, bug fixes, all of that jazz,
Yeah.
and seeing how that interacts with the game currently. Uh, I hope that all of that's for the better. Priests, for some reason, got an additional talent point today in their class tree. I
What?
don't know if they removed a talent or what happened, but you essentially get another free talent point to spend in the class tree.
Hey, they could spend that on their kick. Just
You
kidding.
know what I spent it on? I spent it on the fade remove snares.
Wait, so priests just have one more talent point than anyone else?
No, no, no. Like I think that they removed or made something baseline that you previously had to talent into. So now you're getting an additional talent point.
Mm, okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. Gotcha.
So
It's a wild
uh
time, man. This is always the crazy time where like you can't pay attention to anything that's like
it's
balance
so hard to
wise.
follow all of the class specific shit. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to know what's going on, but there's too much shit. Like I didn't know warlocks were bugged the whole time until somebody from our guild kept telling us that warlocks were bugged. And he's like, yeah, I just can't use my health stone. It's like, what? I can use your health stone. Why can't you use your health
Yeah. I
stone?
mean, the first thing I did was click my Hellstone and said, "It works, idiot. You don't know what you're talking about." But apparently the bug is that warlocks themselves cannot use the Hellstone.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Um, Other than that, I think remix is ending soon. Maybe we should talk a little bit about that. It seems like, in my opinion, the characters coming out of remix are going to be getting some, I would call it bad gear.
Mhm.
It's 467 item level, which like that's, I mean, we can get up into the mid 420s to 430, right? Or
Five.
sorry,
Yeah.
520 to 530 right now. So we're talking like 60 potential item levels lost, which is just not good comparatively to other classes.
Yeah, I think it's weird that they're doing it that I mean, like, the fact that they're I think we talked about a couple weeks ago that they should just let those characters transfer over now. Like, as soon as pre-patch came out, you should just be able to end your remix experience and become a retail character so you can try out your new characters that you just leveled before the expansion comes out. But if they're going to do it, which they are, if they're going to make it so you cannot transfer over until the entire remix experience has ended, then yes, your gear should be higher level. You should be at least the level that you get from the pre-patch event, which is 480. Um,
Yeah.
that should be the bare minimum because why not? Like why not? The event's ending. It's not like it's something that you're going to be able to abuse after the event. Um, it's just the whole point is to kind of smooth out your leveling experience going into the next expansion. So yeah, I mean, give him 500. Who cares? Who cares
Yeah.
at this point? Yeah.
Well, it feels weird. The other thing is they're getting, I think, all 30 slot bags and they're getting a 20 slot reagent bag.
What I don't
Um,
even know
or
what
not reagent bag, crafting bag, the one that all of your crafting mats go into,
I don't even
whatever that's called.
I think it's a reagent bag. I don't know what size bags I have. I haven't looked at my bags in forever, so I
I want
probably
to say
have
they're like 36 slot
sure.
by those are the like 10 gold ones, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I could be wrong. Um, yeah, I don't know. It feels weird. It feels weird that like if you made a character in Remix at the very beginning, you spent like months on it at this point, and you're being rewarded with here's some shit gear.
Yeah, I
Here's
mean,
30 slot
the
bags.
the real reward was all the like if you made a remix character at the beginning of remix, you probably got every single thing you could buy in remix. If you
Right,
played
that's fair.
if you played even a little bit, like I mean, it just seems like near the end of it, like it was just here's all this free shit for playing, minimally on this idea. I kind of honestly regret not really doing it at all. I think at the time it didn't seem like something I'd be interested in. I wish I could have collected some of the mounts. I also just like I didn't have any like the only characters I don't have at max level are the ones like the I'm not a DPS player, so it's the ones that are just the pure DPS classes. It's mage, it's hunter, warlock, rogue. Um I don't have any of those at max level, so like I would make one of those to do remix and then I would play
Mhm.
it for like an hour and a half and be like, I'm bored. I don't want to do this anymore. But I wish I had tried it out because I mean I think it was a very rocky start for the remix experiment, but based on how it is right now and the feedback that I've been seeing from people that have experienced it is it's pretty good and pretty successful. It seems like a thing that they're probably going to try to do again in the future. Maybe they will have worked out the kinks, and so it will be a little bit less rocky from the start. But as just like a fun thing to do, that's kind of separate from the normal game, I think it seems like it was a pretty big success. So good for them. It's a cool idea. I hope they continue to experiment with these cool ideas. I hope that the experimentation is not just, oh, this was popular, let's do it again, but with a different expansion. Let's do Legion remix. Let's do like, I hope it iterates a bit more than that. But I think the next time it does iterate, I will probably give it a shot.
Warlords remix. Let's go.
Do you think they really just
um,
go in order? I mean, it still is interesting to me that they picked Mr. Pandaria. Part of me thinks it's because I, I don't even know, like because
well,
they've
Mist
got
would have been the highest regarded expansion that they haven't already done in Classic, right?
true,
So that's
yeah,
probably why.
yeah. I mean, I know that they're also probably already working on Mop Classic right now. I would assume. So maybe that was just kind of already something they were actively working on and said, "Oh, we could do this too." I don't know. But it is a pretty popular expansion. So who knows? I don't know. We'll see.
I think the last piece of news that we really want to cover for the news portion of the podcast is we got a new login screen. It was in beta. Um, I don't know. I like it, so I'm happy with it. It's a lot less boring than the one that we had for a little while. I mean, it's more or less the same, but the circle is now you can see through it and you see like this landscape and everything.
Yeah, I think you see
Uh,
Dornegal, which is the capital
yeah.
city of this expansion. So I have a question for you. Um, Do you think this was always planned? Or do you think they saw the reaction to the original login screen and went, "Oh shit, quick, we got to fix it"?
So I think that it was not always planned. Probably because when's the last time they've ever done this? Like we've never had like a here's the test kind of login screen and here's the new one. I mean, even with the Dragonflight one where they were like, well, this Dragonflight, there's no friggin' dragons on the login screen. And they just added a dragon to the one that existed. Like they didn't change it at
Yeah.
all. This one's actually being changed. So I don't think it was planned.
I don't think either, because like the idea that like, yeah, there's not been an established cadence of like the login screen is going to be like a portal that slowly opens over time as we move towards the expansion. It's never been a thing. I there was this time, I don't know if you played beta at this point, but there was a time when they like clearly decided that they were going to do this, and they didn't go on the beta right from the closed portal screen to like the one we see now. There was the same thing, except they clearly just like took a mouse and like shrunk like it wasn't meshing at all. It wasn't like an animation of a slightly opening portal. It was just a rock right in the middle of the screen that looked so silly, and I was like, what are we doing? It was kind of wild. I kind of agree with you, and I mean, I don't want to be the conspiracy theory person, but it just seems like this was an audible. And there's some people that are convinced like it's going to change over the course of the expansion. Like when we move into the next tier, where it's going to be a portal into the new city. And I'm like, they've never, ever, ever done that. Ever. Like, it's a cool idea. And maybe they'll like read that idea and go, ooh, maybe we'll do that. But they've never done that. So I don't know why people think that they would do that.
Yeah, I don't see it happening. The main thing with it changing that makes me think that it isn't, like I said, is that they've never done it before. And honestly, like I, I don't know. Like all of the previous WoW login screens have always been like this WoW factor, and the one that they had just didn't have that at all.
Yeah.
And I think the new one definitely has a lot more. It's nothing like logging in and seeing Deathwing standing over Stormwind or the Lich King or anything like that, but it's definitely better than it was.
Yeah, it is. I wish it was a little bit more dynamic in there. Like I think I liked the Dragonflight login screen a whole lot. I liked it a lot better when they had the brilliant idea of putting a dragon into it. The one thing I will say is I turned the music on because I usually play without the in-game music, but I always like to turn it on around expansion time. And the login screen music is really good. I think the music of
Mhm.
this expansion is going to be really good. I think I'm going to be the guy that has my music on for the first couple weeks of the expansion, just taking it all in. So
uh
if you haven't listened to it, I would check that out.
Yeah, I need to turn it on. I haven't actually tried it. The music is the only thing that's muted in my game. Everything else I have at least at some audible volume.
We have friends that play like the game completely
Silent.
silent, and I just don't know how they do that. Like that
Yeah,
seems insane to me.
me either. I like pressing rampage on my warrior and hearing it hit the enemies. The only other piece that we got for an update as far as today was there's a new Great Vault UI, and I've actually experienced it. It looks pretty slick. I like it a lot.
Mhm.
So hopefully we keep getting these UI facelifts because if there's anywhere that Blizzard needs help, it's their user interfaces.
Yeah.
They look like they were made in 2004. So
Did you see? There's also like the new like the like drop in the thing that's on the left side of your screen that you click and it pops in. That is like the raid and group finder, or not finder, raid and group management tool. They updated the
oh yeah.
UI of that too. You can now switch your dungeon difficulties in that interface, which
Oh
is cool.
really?
Yeah.
That's neat.
Hmm.
I haven't interacted with it at all because like I have so many things overhauling my UI right now
Yeah, I don't even know
that
how to get to it.
yeah, with LVUI, I'm sure it's still there, but
Yeah.
I might have it disabled. But I'll have to play around with that because like I use like they have the ready check and everything else in that panel, but I don't use that. I
Mhm.
use method raid tools for all of my ready checks and
Yeah, I do
everything.
too. The other thing I saw, they added. I don't know when they added this, but there's like there's like an outline feature you can do on your character, right? To make it like glow, to make your character more distinct. I think that's been in the game for a while. But the video that they released today, one thing they pointed out was there's another thing you can now do, which is you can put like one of the markers above your head, and it's only for you, and it's not like if you're using any kind of add-on that moves markers around, like it's only for you. It is, oh, no one else can see the marker, like if you put a star above your head just to help track your location on the screen. No one else can see it. It's just for you. None of the other add-ons will like take that away from you. No other person can take it away from you. So that's like a cool way if you're like an old man like me and sometimes lose track of like I have the add-on that puts the big circle around my cursor because I'm an old man and I lose my cursor sometimes. And then I have it turned on like the outline on my character thing, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to do that at least for raids, because sometimes you just like you get lost in not only the spell effects but also all the other people, and like seeing my character I think is good. So I'm going to do that.
I'm gonna be interested to see how that mark above your head interacts with like if you actually have a mark above your head too, a group mark.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
I
Well,
hope the in-game can be seen by other one would just trump the personal one in that
agreed.
instance, and then when it moves off, your personal one would come back, I would assume, but I don't know.
Yeah. It'd also be interesting if they came up with different markers for the personal ones.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
like
so
not
far
the like
it's just the same ones that they've been using for what, 15 years. It should be yeah, I think it should be something unique and then different. Yeah.
well, I guess do you have anything else for news?
No, it's the calm before the storm right now. That's where we're at. So everything's in now. The patch is live and everything's in. So they've just got to turn on the switch a week from Thursday. So yeah, we're doing it.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. The thing is, so we're gonna have one more podcast before early access
Yeah, what the
launches,
hell are
and
we
then the
gonna?
next I don't know, man. I don't know
Me
what the hell
too.
we're gonna talk about next week. Like I didn't plan for this, so I guess we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
We're gonna have so that next week we'll have one before early access, and then we'll have like immediately after the game full launches, we'll have another podcast, right?
I
The
think that
26th.
one, yeah, will probably just be about like first impressions, like review of early access week, because I think
Yeah.
the early access week is a new experiment. It's a fairly controversial experiment. I, of course, bought into it, but I'm not thrilled about it existing. And I'm really curious to see how it goes, because I do think, as much as they've claimed that this is not going to have any long term effects on progression, I think if you play the game a certain way, if you're a crafter, for example, it's hard to see how it won't.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Well, I guess to kick things off for the actual main portion of the podcast for today, the War Within is closed. It's a week and a half away. So we were actually going over the timeline for kind of the launch of the War Within all the way up until when Mythic comes out with our
Yeah.
guild today.
Hmm.
And to the point where like it's so confusing and convoluted
Yep.
that we felt like it might actually be worthwhile to cover here, and really kind of give an insight on what you can do to like min max the time that you have, especially for those who have early access, because you're going to be able to get max level, and do some normal dungeons before people potentially even have the game,
Yeah.
right? Like there's a select few people who bought early access and are going to be able to do that, and then there's going to be the vast majority. I'm assuming the vast majority of people getting the game on the 26th.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So let's preface this before we get into any of this. You don't have to do any of these things we're
correct.
about to talk about. This is entirely optional. Mythic Plus will be out on the 17th, and that will drop vastly better gear than any of the things. And I think, you know, we're World of Warcraft players. We all like to grind to a certain extent. I think everyone has their tolerance of grind, different from others. Like I played a lot in Dragonflight, but I did not do a lot of the most ridiculous early, like first week Dragonflight grinds that people were doing. Like they were grinding the shit out of rares and like
Rathian rep.
in dirt. Yeah, I still I got all the renowns maxed in Dragonflight. I still have not finished the Rathian Sibelian stuff. It's almost impossible now because there's like no one doing it. So like you'd have to do it yourself, and that would just take it's not impossible. It would just take so much longer. I was just like, I don't want to
Yeah.
do this. Um, but so I don't have the patience for that stuff. But like trying to use my time as efficiently as possible to give myself as much of a leg up as possible is definitely something I like to participate in. And so I think it's part of the reason why I got early access. And I think these things we're about to talk about is just some advice on how to do that. I mean, there's going to be as is true in expansions, there's going to be things that people figure out while they're playing that are going to propagate out there on the internet, and suddenly everyone's going to start doing it. We can't predict those things right now, but we do know like how to kind of maximize your vaults and things like that.
Hmm. Well, I guess maybe we just get starting. So, early access comes out on the 22nd of August, which is a week and a half from today. And from that point until the 26th of August, you're going to be able to level. You'll be able to do normal dungeons. And then all the way up to T8 delves. Is that correct? Or
T3,
will
T3,
T3
yeah.
delves? Okay.
So basically, delves. I think until you're max level, you can't go past the third tier of delves. And we'll talk about delves here in a minute. But so you can't do like the max level delves until early access is over. So yeah, just T3.
Okay. And then on the 26th, when the actual expansion releases, which is a Monday, so it'll release on Monday, the 26th, that will introduce heroic dungeons, I
Mm-hmm.
believe,
Yes.
which means that you'll be able to run 8 heroic dungeons for a potential vault on Tuesday.
Yes. You will be
Is
able
that
to.
confirmed?
I don't know if they've 100% said that there will be a vault on the Tuesday after launch. The only reason I would think they would not do that is because that would give a pretty clear advantage to early access people. So
Mhm.
not 100% no, but maybe better safe than sorry. You know, level your character to max over the weekend, Monday at 6 o'clock Eastern, when I think the expansion officially launches. Immediately start running those heroic dungeons, which you're probably going to want to do anyway because those are going to give gear that you probably want. Although this is where it gets a little bit weird. So there is a difference this launch between preseason heroic dungeons and season heroic dungeons. So the season does not officially start until the 10th of September. And so heroics, when the season starts, will award you with eye level 580 gear on the adventure track. But and those will be the 8 dungeons that are part of the Mythic Plus rotation. So the 4 War Within dungeons and the 4 old dungeons. But the dungeons that you can do the first week of release, from the 26th all the way up until the 10th, is just all the War Within dungeons, and those only award 567 gear. That is Explorer track, which is one below the Adventurer track. So yeah, it's kind of weird in that like like all heroics are not built the same in this expansion, basically. Um, but it's still the best way going all the way through the first week of the War Within. The best vault is going to be doing 8 heroic dungeons.
Well, I guess after that, though, we get into what I would consider the weirdest period. So we're getting heroic dungeons on the 26th on launch, and
Yeah,
then we are not getting anything else until September 10th.
correct. Which is two
So
weeks.
2 weeks of only having heroic dungeons, and I guess delves up until
Still 3.
I'm a
No, still 3.
three,
Yeah,
three
yeah,
still.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Delves beyond 3 are part of the season, and therefore they do not open until later. Now there will be, I think there's a thing in delves, and we'll talk about this when we get delves. There's a thing called a bountiful delve, which is a delve that has like a special chest at the end of it that gets higher than average gear in it. So the bountiful delve will be available at T3 once the expansion comes out on the 26th. But if you want to delve beyond T3, that's a seasonal thing, and that is not starting until the season itself starts.
So we just have essentially 2 weeks of dead time. I guess maybe spend that time, get your heroics done, get your vault, and then maybe spend that time leveling alts. I don't really know what else to tell you to do during that
Get
period.
Yeah, you'll probably like get enough of the lower crests to upgrade everything to max upgrade level of the stuff you have, which will probably be at best the veteran track, which I think goes up to 603 fully upgraded, which is where normal raid gear starts, by the way. So yeah, I mean, there's just essentially, this is what I've been telling people: like, don't take off work. Like, just like if you play this game a lot and you are a Mythic Pluser or a raider that is going to hit the raid and Mythic Plus hard when they come out, don't take vacation between the 26th and the 10th. There's just not going to be that much for you to do. I mean, run dungeons every day. You're going to want to kit yourself out in full heroic dungeon gear / delve whatever gear. But yeah, man, there's just not going to be too much to do.
Well, on the 10th, we get Mythic Zero. We get up to T8 delves. That's what
Yes.
we have down here. I want to
Well,
make sure
so
that's correct.
you get all the way up until T11 delves, but delves stop rewarding extra gear after level 8. So you don't get better gear after 8. 8 is basically when the gear cap for delves is. It's
Okay.
the Mythic Plus equivalent of a 10, essentially.
Okay. That makes sense. And then we get LFR, normal, and heroic.
Yep.
All releasing on the 10th.
Yep.
And they're bringing back the concept of a heroic week, so we're not getting Mythic on the 10th. We'll get Mythic a week later. And with that, we'll also get Mythic Plus a week later because of the dungeon squish.
Yep.
So normally we used to get Mythic Plus. We could go up to what was previously a 10, but a 10 is now a 0, which is why we're getting Mythic Zeros only. And then we'll get Mythic Plus on whenever Mythic Raid releases, so the 17th of September.
Mm-hmm. Here's the problem. Right now, if you go into a Mythic Zero in pre-patch right now, you will finish the Mythic Zero and you will get a champion track piece of equipment, which is essentially the equivalent of normal raid right now. That is not the case in the War Within. In the War Within, this first week, the Mythic Zero you will get will be veteran track. It will be eye level 593 gear that can be upgraded all the way, I believe, to like 606, maybe somewhere around there. So basically what's happening here is M0s are not as good to run. So it's not that you're not going to run them. And the thing that I'm not sure on, bountiful delves. So you remember I talked about the bountiful chest in a delve. It's just this special chest that is in some delves that you need a key to unlock, and the key you get from doing world quests and other things, blah, 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 blah. That drops champion level gear, a bountiful delve. And of course, world bosses too do as well. I don't know if bountiful delves are capped weekly. Like, how many bountiful delves can you get in a week or a day? I don't know. If there isn't a cap, then the advantageous thing to do during this week, obviously clear the raid on normal and on heroic if you can clear it on heroic. But it might just be grinding first grinding world quests in order to get the shards, and you combine 100 of the shards into a key for a bountiful delve, then finding a T8 delve or higher and grinding delves that have the bountiful chest at the end of it to get the 60 whatever champion track gear. And that by the way is definitely going to be the best way to maximize your vault this week, because a T8 delve will award you a 616 heroic track item in your vault that is more than a Mythic Zero will net you. Now, not to say that it's not worth like maxing out your Mythic Zero vault, just because that track of you're just I'm making myself angry saying these things, and I'm watching your reaction to all this. Um,
I don't like it. I don't like it.
now it could be that you're just basically capped on how many bountiful delves you can do, right? That like the system will only allow you to get certain number of keys, and there'll be a certain number of bountiful delves. Let's say once a day, right? You can only do it one time per day to get the bountiful one. I think that's a lot more reasonable, because then like what you're gonna do is you're gonna get all your bountiful chest delves done in your week, and you're gonna do Mythic Zero. Now we didn't say the change to Mythic Zero is going to be that it is a daily reset, not a weekly reset. So M0 used to reset once a week. With the squish and these changes, Mythic Zero will be a daily reset. So you can run all 8 dungeons every day for a week during this week, to get some gear, and it will be decent gear, but it will not be champion track. It will not be. So it will be replaced very, very quickly. It will, like the normal raid stuff you get will be better. Any heroic raid gear will be way better. The next week, I think mythic, like a mythic +2 gives champion track. So like all your M0 stuff gone as soon as Mythic Plus comes out. You're never gonna do a 0 again, essentially. Um, it's a weird decision, and it's confusing. But there you have it. The biggest thing I'm worried about is they're gonna Torghast delves and make delves like, if you want gear, this is the mandatory thing you're gonna have to do, and you're gonna have to do it a lot.
That was my biggest thing that I was thinking while you were explaining all this is we're now getting another system that's supposed to be for fun, and we're tying it to player power, and it's not going to be for fun anymore.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about that. Honestly, I'm concerned about it.
Especially since what delves are supposed to be, and we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail in just a second. What delves are supposed to be is they're supposed to be this third pillar of the game that's not for people like you and me, that enjoy Mythic Plus. Like, what delves are supposed to be is a progression path for the player of this game that really just does the world quest stuff, that just, maybe they walk into a dungeon every once in a while, but they mostly do the game for transmog and for exploring the world and experiencing the story and that kind of stuff. Now they, through the delve process, have a progression path that they can undertake by themselves. They don't need to be in a group. They don't have to deal with any of that social anxiety or any of that stuff. But they have something they could do and something they could steadily work towards over the course of a season of this game. That's a great idea. I love it for those people. I don't love it for us, and we'll talk about that. But I think I think giving the people that play the game that way a path towards something in the game is a good idea. It completely ruins it when it also is like, oh, but you're going to have to do it too. Now the question is, are we going to actually have to do it? Because even if it is true that this is just the best way to gear during the heroic week, we don't have to do that, right? Like we can max out our vault. We can max out our Delve vault and just be like, all right, that's good enough for me. Maybe I'll be like slightly behind the curve on item level going into the first week of Mythic Plus, but I'm not going to be pushing title keys anyway. I'm not trying for world first keys. Like I will be lucky if we get 10s done the first week. I think that's going to be really challenging this season. So I don't even know if that's an achievable goal to have. So like, ultimately, does it matter? No. But I do think it's they brought this new system in and then like immediately neutered Mythic Plus or Mythic Zero, which just feels like a weird choice to me.
Yeah. I haven't done a ton of delves on beta, and I haven't done any delves with people. That's one thing that I want to talk about when we get into the more delve specific topic,
Sure.
because like I can tell you that I will do them by myself if I need to for my vault, but I will prioritize doing them with other people. And if that makes it either worse or take longer or something like that, I'm not going to be happy. Like I'm going to be very not happy about that.
So let's just jump into it. Let's switch.
Sure.
I think we've covered everything we wanted to cover. It's very confusing. I hope you all listened to that and took copious notes, because I had like 3 spreadsheets open while I was going through this just to keep it all straight in my head.
Should we do like a recap real quick just at the end?
Yeah,
Like,
sure. So yeah, to recap very quickly on this, if you have early access, what you're going to be doing early access weekend is leveling up. That's pretty much it. You'll level up, you'll run some normal dungeons, get some decent gear. If there is going to be a vault on the Tuesday after the game launches, on Monday the 26th, you want to do 8 heroic dungeons just to get that vault in, just in case. From the 26th through the 10th, do heroic dungeons. That's basically it. Do heroic dungeons. That's all you
vaults.
got. Level alts. Yeah, once the 10th comes out, 10th is Mythic Zero. It is the full delve system all the way up to the max where you get gear, and it is LFR Wing 1, normal raid, heroic raid. All those are out. You can do all of those. The thing I would make sure to do to complete your vault is get 8 tier 8 delves done. At least will give you one of the best pieces you can get. The 17th of September is when everything else is opened. There's no more slow rolling, except for if you're an LFR raider. I think the LFR last wing comes out the week after that, but who cares? That's when Mythic Plus will open and you can jump into your 2s and start working up from there. So that's the schedule. It will be 27 days between the release of early access and the first key you will run, which is absolutely insane. But here we are.
We're gonna have a month of not doing keys, and
Yep.
I'm gonna be so fiending for keys by
Yep.
the end of
Yep.
that.
Yep. I mean, we're so fiending for keys right now that we're doing keys that don't matter, that aren't getting us anything. We just want to play the game, and we're just literally not going to be able to do it.
So, for the delve topic, the first thing that I want to ask you, I guess, is I put out, and albeit we don't have a huge amount of people providing feedback on this right now, but I put out a poll on both Twitter and on YouTube, which both garnered around 5 votes for now.
We're so famous.
Where almost nobody cares about delves. Like, it feels weird that this is going to be an endgame pillar, and the way that you're explaining it is it's going to be potentially something that's going to play maybe an actual decent role in potentially gearing, but nobody seems to care.
Yeah.
Nobody even knows what they are. Like, it releases in a week and a half, and I can go to our guild and be like, "Hey, man, tell me what you know about delves." I guarantee you, the majority of our guild doesn't know a single fucking thing about delves.
Yeah.
It just like I don't know.
So what I think this is, and you're absolutely right here, but I think this is selection bias. Like, the people on the internet listening to people talk about World of Warcraft are not the target audience for delves. The people in our guild that like to do AOTC and want to push towards Mythic and do Mythic Plus are not who delves are for. Delves are for those people we were talking about a couple of minutes ago. These are bite-sized 15-minute little adventures into a cave, to complete some objectives and get some loot at the end, for people that just casually play this game a couple hours a week. They want to explore the zones, they want to experience the story, they want to progress and level up a little bit. And the game really didn't have anything for them outside of like world quests and events. Like, the game didn't have anything for those people, to the point that I was like legitimately asking those people if I could find them, but I can't find them because I don't know where they are. They're out in the world somewhere. Like, what are you getting out of this? Because like none of that content is hard. And I don't mean like, it's not that it's not hard, it's that it's so easy that it's like nothing to me. And so this is a way for those people to have a progression path and maybe do something that is not like super super difficult until you probably get up to like the upper echelon of delves, but is something that has some sort of progression of challenge, and it's something they can do by themselves, and it's something they can do very quickly for 15 minutes. Like, I'm going to be honest with you, there are times I am not the target audience for these, but there are times when I want to play World of Warcraft, but I don't have 45 minutes to hop on and do a key with my friends. I have a couple minutes here and there. I have, maybe like my kid is like over in the corner actually like just chilling with a toy and not being a gremlin for 15 minutes, and I could just go do this real quick. And like, that does sound appetizing to me, that as like something to do in the game that I love, that I can do by myself quickly, that is pretty low stress, like pretty easy to get through, not too challenging. Like that does have some level of appeal to me on principle. Um, but my experience with delves have been that's the only thing that excites me about them, because actually doing them has just not been very interesting for me. So there's this problem with them that it's content designed for any class, any spec, right? So it has to be content that a mage can do by themselves, a tank can do by themselves, a healer can do by themselves. And so a lot of times, depending on the spec you are, it just devolves into just mindlessly killing enemies that are not challenging at all, that don't really do very much. And so I I don't think, like, I don't know if this is gonna do what they want it to do
Mm,
ultimately. Like the thing that, again, this is not for me, so my satisfaction with it is almost irrelevant. I am very curious how the larger World of Warcraft audience that this is for is going to react to it. Is this going to give them something they want? Are they going to enjoy this? Are they going to find it fun? Because I've done maybe half a dozen of these things because they're not very long, and I've just kind of popped into beta and just like randomly picked one and just ran in and did it on different levels of difficulty to kind of test it. And they just feel like either an extension of the questing you're already doing in World of Warcraft, which we've talked about, not the most entertaining thing in the world, or like, the scenarios, like when they had, I think it was Mr. Pandaria that they created
yep.
the concept of scenarios, and they meant to be this like not a full dungeon but like a quicker thing for like 3 people. And I never found those to be particularly like fun. And that's what it feels like. It feels like scenarios. Now I think there's potential here, because one thing that I do know is that there are 13 delves in this first season. I don't know if they're going to do like, they're not going to make 13 new delves every season, so I don't know how they're going to exactly handle this. But I do know that each one is slightly dynamic in that you can do the same delve 2 times and it will be slightly different. Not just like there's different mobs, but there's like different objectives. You sometimes start in different place on the map. You have different limitations on you, so they are trying to make it dynamic and different. That it's not just you're doing the same thing over and over again, which is cool. So I mean, like there's a lot of potential here. I think I do think, from the way you and I approach this game and the things you and I want from this game, I just don't know if this is ever going to be something super interesting for us. I don't know.
Yeah, the main concern that I have is exactly what you said a few minutes ago. Is like, and I think I brought this up when we were talking about the schedule too. I don't want this to become another Torghast,
Yeah.
because like when Shadowlands came out and they announced Torghast, and maybe don't murder me over this, but I was excited. I was like, I love roguelikes. I love World of Warcraft. Putting those two things together, like, this is amazing to me. And then I was required to do it
Hmm.
every week on every character I played so that I could keep up with my stupid Soul Ash and the stupid other shit that I needed.
Yeah.
And like, it just ruined it for me. Like, I stopped doing it. I stopped caring. I was like, the first couple weeks, cool, whatever. But now I'm forced to do this, and it's Monday, and it's 11 o'clock, and I just don't. I don't want to fucking do it, but I have to.
Yeah. Well, and part of it, and again, I didn't play during the early Shadowlands, so this is all I'm getting all this, from a person, from a person. My understanding is that Torghast on the beta was very popular, and people did really like it on the beta. And then when they decided to move forward with this, essentially making it a requirement week over week, they had to change it in a way to make it quicker,
Yes.
simpler, and easier,
Yep.
because it was like a thing that everyone had to do and was going to need to do and then needed to be successful at when you convert it from a fun side thing into a chore. You essentially have to make the chore as quick and easy as possible, and
Hmm.
that kind of guts it. Now these things are designed, the delves are designed to be quick and easy, so maybe with a system that's designed this way from the ground up, it won't be that drastic of a change. I don't know. Like I've yet to play one up to like level 11, right? I've yet to play it at the highest difficulty, but I like waltzed into a 6 yesterday, not knowing what the fuck was going on at all. Not really, only kind of half paying attention because it was like 1 o'clock in the morning and I was just doing it right before I went to bed. And I died once because I was doing one that was underwater and I forgot that I had air and I forgot to collect one of the air bubbles and I drowned to death. Um, but like it wasn't hard.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and that's, I mean, and that's two levels away from the level in which the gear caps out on. So I don't see like in those two levels that something that dramatic happening. I don't know.
Yeah. Uh, the other main thing that I have that I'm really worried about is on the surface, to me, scenarios weren't fun. I didn't like them. I don't think pretty much anybody from Mists like them.
I mean,
There's a
there's a
reason
reason
they're
why they
not in the
don't do.
game in the
Yeah,
game.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
uh, and like the scenarios that we have now, the questing ones where you go in and you're in this instance and you have like, X 10 things that you need to accomplish. You start with one, you go to two, three, four, five, whatever. I mean, they're okay. I don't say that I love doing that. So I guess I'm not super thrilled about it, but I'm not the target audience. That's fine. I hope that doing them with your friends doesn't make them harder, to the point where it's like almost impossible to do. And it's more beneficial to do them solo. I really hope that that's not the case. It's kind of how it was in Torghast, where it was almost more beneficial to do the thing solo than with your friends.
I I would be
And that
very
sucks.
surprised if it was harder if you took. I mean, obviously the mobs are gonna have more hit points, blah blah blah, right? But like it is, they are designed to be 15-minute bite-sized adventures. So the idea
Mhm.
that it's a 15-minute bite-sized adventure unless you bring 5 people and then suddenly it's a 45-minute slog would to me be like antithetical to the entire concept of the thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I am guessing that like outside of these weird dead period weeks, once the season starts, I am not going to set foot in these with other people. So like there's almost certainly going to be like a weekly quest that's like do blank delves and get a reward that we'll probably end up doing, right? And then maybe in the early season it will be advantageous to at the very least fill your vault out of at the tier 8 level. But like it's hard for me with the limited playing time I have with this game to imagine me logging in a night where there's a bunch of people online and being like, all right, let's spend the next hour doing delves to get our delves vault. It is much more likely that for me that if I feel like I need to uh, do the delves to like fill the vault and that kind of stuff, that I'm just going to do them myself by myself in little fits and spurts over the course of the week. Um,
Yeah. So you said something that made me, I'm sure you saw, but made me think. So a weekly quest for delves, whatever, that's fine. That will probably happen. But do we think the world quest bonus week will turn into a delve bonus week, or maybe we'll have a delve bonus week?
that's interesting. I because the track in the vault is not a specific delve track. It's just like a world event track that delves happen to be like the highest thing you can get in that particular spot. I think they'll probably just change the world quest week to the delve week. Um,
That would be cool.
yeah,
That has the potential to be cool. If it like, because they did this with Torghast kind of, where like you got these cool pets and stuff. That they did that at the end of
yeah,
Torghast when nobody was doing it anymore. Um but if they did that and they added in like additional modifiers, or you could like opt into harder modifiers or something like that, I think that'd be really cool.
yeah. I think so too, and I wouldn't mind having to do those. I mean, like, look, this is a cool idea. Like, you have an NPC with you, Bran, who you can assign healer or DPS who levels up, and you can get abilities for. It's an interesting system. You also have like the customizable mount in this expansion is not the dragons that were in the in Dragonflight. It's this like gyro copter thing mount that you can um you can basically mess around with. So like that's cool stuff, and like yeah, like pump this thing with cosmetics and fun. There's like a meta achievement you can get for delves in the season that will give you another different mount. Like all that's good, all that's cool. Keep that stuff going. I think there's people out there. There's a lot of content creators I listen to that are like even more flabbergasted than you and I, that are just like, what are these? What the fuck is this for? This is like stupid and meaningless. And I'm just like, that's because it's not for you. Like it's
Yeah.
definitely, I mean, it's not even for us. And we are not, we are like casual compared to the people that play this game as a job. So, I mean, I think the best and greatest way to look at it is I think their design philosophy is essentially we are going to have three pillars of end game in this game. We are going to have one pillar that will require a lot of people, one pillar that will require a slightly smaller amount of people, and then one pillar that will require no people. And the value of your gear will go up based on the number of people you need to do the thing. That is essentially their philosophy. I think that makes total sense. I think it's good for there to be a progression for people that just want to play this game as a single player game, despite the fact
Yep.
that I still don't understand them. I still think there's probably single player games better than this one out there. But also I really like this game a whole lot, and I like playing this game. And so like the idea of I do have this other thing, like there's some days right now where like, you know, my kid's not really asleep yet. I'm worried of starting something up in case he wakes up, and having something low friction like this to just pop on and be like, I'm getting to play the game because I like playing this game. I like it being more than just a Mythic Plus simulator sometimes. And so
Hmm.
I don't know, man. I am worried the Torghast situation will happen. I hope that this version of Blizzard has learned their lessons from that and will not make those exact same mistakes again. Um, but I don't know. Delves. We're gonna definitely spend some time on them for 2 weeks because there's gonna be nothing else to do. So we're gonna delve the delves, and maybe we'll have like a post delving
Uh-huh.
pod where we talk about our actual experience of these things after we've seen how they actually function in a regular season.
I was about to say we should definitely do like a Dell review after the 2 weeks of us probably needing to do them a lot. Um, well, so we have a few other things that I want to cover, and I'll kind of maybe turn it over to you on what one you want to focus on first. So there's actually one that isn't on here that is completely escaping my mind, and I just had it, and I'm really sad that I lost it. But the two that I can remember, we have legendaries and tank changes. What one you want to talk about first?
Let's finish on legendaries. It feels good to finish on a legendary. So let's talk about the tank changes.
Sure.
This is actually something that I think we both had like collectively thought we talked about on the podcast when it came out. But I think what happened is the tank changes came out on a Wednesday, and we had recorded on a Tuesday. And so like we didn't actually ever talk about the tank changes, and then the next episode we recorded, you and I had talked about them to death privately, and then
Yep.
we on the podcast acted like we had talked about them before. I think what I want to do here is I don't actually want to get into a lot of specifics on the tank changes. I want to kind of talk about the philosophy with you briefly here, because essentially what the philosophy is Blizzard has felt that tanks have become too self-sufficient, that they are basically that their gameplay loop is entirely revolving around them just completely maintaining themselves without any outside influence, and they wanted to reduce that a little bit. And so what they've done is they've kind of nerfed tanks self-sustainability across the board. Some tanks are hit more than others by this. I think the tanks that are already pretty not great on self-sustainability, like warriors, were hit harder than tanks like death knights, which are still, even with the nerfs, are pretty like the sustained tank generally, right? Um,
Then Brewmaster got a buff.
yeah, Brewmaster got a buff. They did get a nerf in some ways. They got a nerf to some of their dodge stuff, but they got a buff to yeah. Brewmaster is the one that made like a bandit out of this one because they
Like it
it was
was
a
good
net
for
buff. But
Brewmaster.
that just shows you how fucking squishy and Brewmaster was already the tank that was not really good at the self-sustain. Like they're just the way they mitigate damage required assistance from a healer. Like when I heal as a resto druid with a brewmaster, life bloom's going on the brewmaster for sure. He's gonna need it, and it's a pretty good. I think resto druid and brewmaster like team up very well because of that. Because the hots kind of naturally counter the stagger. Um, so I read this change right when I had decided to play a tank in this expansion, and I was like, fuck, what have I done? And I was really distraught about it. And I've kind of cooled off on that because what we're not going to have here is tanks need to kite, tanks like are just getting their ass kicked. Um, we're not that's not the way the season's gonna go. Now there might be some degen stuff at the highest end where they're pulling multiple packs in order to survive it. The tank has to kite for a little bit. But I think in practicality, what it's gonna mean for you and I and the majority of people interacting with Mythic Plus is the healer is no longer going to be able to ignore the tank. Now, there's a line between I have to throw the tank some heals every so often and I have to basically be a tank healer, which is the
Yep.
way it works in Classic a lot. Like, you know, like when we first went back to Wrath of the Lich King, and even especially in the Burning Crusade, like healers essentially just healed the tank. That's what you did. You just spam cast on the tank, and that's all you did. And I hate that gameplay. I hate it so much. Um, it's not going to be that though. Like everything I've seen, everything I've experienced myself on the beta, that is not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is that like a resto shaman before this change would not need to put Earth Shield on the tank. That would be a waste. It's better to put Earth Shield on a DPS because the tank can take care of themselves. Now you probably need to put Earth Shield on the tank, and you're probably going to have to pay it. Like, I'll be honest with you, I as a healer, I rarely paid attention to the tank. Like I generally knew he's good. And there's times when I need to like throw an external on them or like did need to bomb healing, but that was almost always they did something wrong, extra mobs they didn't mean to pull came or something weird happened, a cast got off, something like that. Outside of those instances, the tank was I could take their frame off my bar and they'd probably be fine. Um, so I like the idea that the healer cannot just completely ignore the tank now. I think that's probably good that they do need something on them, and an occasional heal. This is where I want to get your input. The problem with this is if they don't also reduce the group damage that's going on, this is bad.
That is the whole thing. Like the whole time you were going on about this and how like it isn't going to be that big of a deal for tanks or healers or whatever. That's all that I could think about is the group wide damage starting with Dragonflight. Honestly, yeah, probably. I think Dragonflight's the
It's
best way to.
Dragonflight, yeah. The change from
It's
Shadowlands to Dragonflight was huge. It was huge.
it's not. I mean, it's fine, right? Like we've done all right with it. I don't think it's healthy for healing. In general, I don't think that you should be worrying about your group surviving if they are at 85% health. I feel like I've said that in the past. I feel like you should be starting to worry about your group dying if they're below 50% health or maybe even lower. Um, but if you're at 50% health now and your healer is not already immediately reacting to it, you're probably dead. And that's just not I don't think that's healthy for the game. I don't think that's healthy for rating. I don't think that that's healthy for Mythic Plus. I think that that is just bad. Um, and these tank changes are not going to help because now healers are going to have to be spending globals on the tank, which is either globals are not spending on damage or it's globals are not spending healing the DPS. And so like I worry about that. I don't think that it's inherently going to be bad for tanking, though. I think tanks are still going to be okay. I think for the most part, tanks are not going to. I mean, you're going to notice this, right? But I don't think it's going to be like, for example, the patch came out today where it's bringing all of these changes into pre-patch, and I don't think that you and I are going to go into a key tonight, and you're going to be like, "Oh man, I just fucking died." Like, I don't think that that's going to happen. But I do think that the healer, like you said, is going to have to focus on the tank, and they're going to have to spend globals on the tank, and that is going to pose other problems.
Yeah. U-
That's the main thing.
Ultimately, the question is, they clearly have decided that it is a problem that the healers are ignoring the tanks. The question is, was it a problem that the healer, like, ultimately, is that a problem? Because if you're fixing something that's not broken, you have a chance to break systems down the line. The thing I am worried about is that this is going to scare people away from healing and tanking, which are the
Yep.
two roles that you're constantly in need of. They're the minority roles in basically everything. You always need a healer and tank. They're the hardest things to find because they're and I want to be clear here. I don't think being a DPS is easier than healing and tanking. I've tried to be a DPS. It is indeed very hard to maintain your rotation in a way that you're doing maximum damage and still deal with the mechanics. I get it. It's hard. I'm not good at it at all. But I do think there is a level of stress at the healer and tank position that is not really comparable to being a DPS, and responsibility and blame. And like, that is why people shy away from these things. Like,
Yep.
as a tank, not only do you have to know how to do your rotation correctly to maximize your damage, to maximize your survivability, you have to know the dungeon, you have to know how to pull. You have to do all these things, and you have to have a rate of pulling. Like, there's a lot of responsibility on you. And a healer, with some of these big damage events, if you don't know that it's coming, like, you're kind of fucked. By the time the damage starts going out, even the healers that aren't particular, like, ramp healers, you already might be fucked and someone might die. Like, it's a lot of stress. It's a lot of stress, and it scares people away from doing the roles. And perhaps the argument could be made that we should be making these jobs less stressful for those people, to invite people to try them out, not more stressful. And I am afraid that this does the opposite.
Yeah. That is I don't know. I ultimately, like, we are not going to know, because what we've experienced on beta is doing dungeons, I believe, fairly severely under geared. Um, and what we've experienced in pre-patch is we still have all of our end of patch or end of expansion power.
Yeah,
Um, so we're really not going to know what this is like until we get to it and the game's released, and we'll be able to really comment on it a little bit more. But there's concerns. I mean, like I said, the spikiness in healing is really the problem that I think we should have been looking at solving, but we solved what I would argue, in my opinion, wasn't a problem. Like, I have no problems that the tank can take care of themselves. And in fact, I think that it brings out a lot of skill expression in tanking,
yeah,
that kind of is gonna get, it's not gonna get curbed, but it's gonna be less so, because you are still gonna need to require a healer. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I feel like we just solved the wrong problem. That's really my take on it.
yeah. I think you're probably right. I think perhaps their argument in this would be, we recognize that problem, and this is actually like the first of several dominoes that we have to hit in order to eventually solve that problem. If we overall, like, I honestly don't think they want to go back to a Shadowlands paradigm where the healer uh still needs to be there. Needs is a arguable term, but really, there's like one or two big heal checks in the dungeon, and it's mostly just doing DPS without, well, throwing the occasional heal. I don't think they want to go back to that. As a healer, I don't really want to go back to that either. So I think they're worried that if we just globally reduce the amount of group wide damage effects that happen, what we're going to do is just turn the healer into a fourth DPS.
Yep.
So if we adjust things one at a time, like adjust one thing, like nerf tanks to make the healers need to heal them a little bit, test it, like observe it, and see what the data is showing us. Okay, this is working. The healer is not having to spam heal the tank, but they are having to maintain them a little bit. Then, okay, then we can perhaps bring down the overall group wide damage a little bit as well, because we feel like those globals that they would have spent doing AoE healing, they will instead spend tossing the tanks a couple heals. Like, you can do this in a way that does eventually solve all the problems. We haven't seen them do that yet, though.
Yeah.
Like they haven't like I unfortunately have not tested beta near as much as I probably should have. But from everything I'm reading and seeing, it's going to be pretty brutal. There's a lot of healing checks in these dungeons, like a lot. Like there's bosses and trash and things that stack up over time and things that perhaps you could have kicked before, but because of the changes to the way AoECC works, it's just going to be so much harder to lock these mobs down. And I'm not even talking about aggressively pulling multiple packs. I'm talking about within one pack in a dungeon.
Mhm.
um to the point where, like, if they don't do the second part of the adjustment, if they just do the tank part of the adjustment, it's just going to be an absolute shit show. And that's ultimately what I'm worried about happening. But they have time. We talked about there's a fucking month between release and Mythic Plus. So there's plenty of time to maybe look at the data through M0 and look at the data through Heroic. Like get a the problem with reacting too much on beta data is the people that are playing beta a lot are the sweatiest, most hardcore, like like players. And like that data, it's not that data is not useful. It is useful, but I think they are probably pretty cautious about like making huge swing adjustments based on just that data, and they would like to see the general audience of the game and what that's showing first. That would
Yeah.
be my guess.
Yeah, I agree. The really, like I said though, I think the biggest thing is we need to not overreact to this. It initially sounds not great, but ultimately, when we first read it, we were like, "What the actual hell is going on?"
Yeah.
And then we logged in, and it's like, "Oh, this is nothing."
Yeah.
So I think that the community as a whole likes to be overreacting to pretty much anything that comes out, but I
True.
think that we need to just kind of like dumb it down on this one and really just see how it plays out
Yep.
before we start like grabbing the pitchforks.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Um, well, I think we do have a little bit of time to still talk about legendaries if you want to get me started on that topic.
Yeah, this is going to be, I think, your baby. Only because you have been the one that have experienced acquiring a legendary in this expansion. So to set this up, I have never owned a legendary in my life outside of the ones that don't count, like the in Shadowlands, like those legendaries don't count. That's just crafting gear that they're calling legendaries. Um, I like never in my time with World of Warcraft have I held a legendary weapon. Um, so talk to me about what it's like in the year 2024 to get a legendary weapon.
It fucking sucks. I mean, that's it. Like, so here's the thing, man. Getting the legendary and it being like this cool special thing that you did as a guild and you got like everybody around and you like, huzzah, we did it together. Gone are those days. Because now all you do is you go in, you kill the boss, you have a chance to get an item, which then you have to do stuff on your own to get the legendary. I think that is the biggest part in why this system that they did in Dragonflight fucking sucked. So essentially, the drop rate for them, in my opinion, was a little too low because they didn't want everybody to have it. Well, here's the problem with that is now since I don't have this, I'm missing out on potentially 20,000 DPS on my paladin or more. And like that's bad. Like it should be better, right? It should be a better weapon and everything like that. But we're into the point of the game where not having this literally means potentially a keystone level that
Hmm.
we can't complete, which is like that's astronomical to think about because it's like, man, it's only 20k DPS. What are you talking about? But like that gets compounded in AoE to be even more than that. And it's like, it's just it's bad, right? And I think that it was a lot better before when we had legendaries that you could get as a guild. So like I think back to like the Terragosa in Firelands, I think back to the Rogue Daggers in Dragon Soul, and even before that we had like Thunder Fury and everything like that. But like all of those were like guild things.
Yeah.
You did them as a guild. And so I really think that that's really where this has like split and become an issue for me. On top of the power thing, the power thing in and of itself, I just don't think it lends itself to the modern version of the game very well. To the point where like maybe we talk about if we're gonna have legendaries, they do need to be the generic for everybody legendaries, or we just kind of I don't know. I don't want to say stop doing them because legendaries are cool, right? Like I am happy to have Furalath and be able to transmog that on any of my characters and use it on my paladin. But it feels bad.
Yeah, I am with you on the difficulty of this conversation because I completely agree that like I think the wrong choice is just to cut the concept of legendary weapons out of the game because I think they are a really cool thing that even if you me have never held one in my hands, just like the idea of them was always cool. The idea of the warglaves, the idea of the hunter bow from the Sunwell, the idea of the mace from Ulduar, like these are cool things that it was not only cool to see people out in the wild having, but it was cool to know and watch your friends get them, even if you weren't the one getting them. Like, I would hate to strip that really cool thing from the game. I do agree that with the way this game works in 2024, I don't know if it can support the existence of these things because you are absolutely right. How do you balance the classes that get legendaries against the other classes? Well, you can just say you don't, right? You don't. You only have to balance them on similar power. And what that essentially means is that, okay, if a warrior without the legendary is just as good as a mage, then the warrior with the legendary is therefore just going to be always better than the mage. And like in old WoW, that didn't matter as much, right? There wasn't things like Mythic Plus. There wasn't these kind of seasonal like PVE competitions and points and things like that, and it just didn't matter as much. It was okay if for a while in this game, just like the fucking Death Knights with Shadowmourne were just like better than everyone else. It was just okay. It was just okay. And that's not the way the game works anymore. And so you have to balance it as if you have it, which means if you don't have it, you feel like you have been that the power has been taken away from you, and your feeling, I watched you have this feeling all throughout season 3 of like I am inadequate until I get this thing, and therefore when you get it you do not feel happy, you feel relieved,
Yeah.
which is the exact wrong emotion you should have when getting something as cool as this thing. Like now I can finally do the damage I should be doing is not the feeling you should be having. um so yeah, I don't know what the solution to this is. I think there is definitely a conversation to be had about changing how they are acquired, because I think you're right, there are two conversations here. There's a conversation of should they exist, and if yes, do we need to change how we get these things? Also yes, I think that system was like there's cool parts of it. I think that the part of it that was cool is that it doesn't unlock until someone on your region has killed the final boss. I think that's like a fun thing that happens. I think that's really cool. But yeah, the acquisition just seems so stupid and unfun. And I agree with you. Like I think the moments where it worked the best was like Icecrown Citadel, Ulduar, where you got pieces of a thing, and then like you as a team, as a group, as friends could go like, okay, we're gonna target Tevin's going to get the legendary first. And then if there's time to build a second one after that, it's going to go to Scott. And then you feel like you're collectively working towards a thing that only one player gets to hold, but the group as a whole will get to benefit from. It's like, look, that's that guild. They got the legendary, and look, there's the guy that they like. Yeah, it just it's all broken, and I think I understand why they're in this position because I don't have any answers either of like how to do this. Um, maybe ultimately it's like we don't remove legendaries per se, but we make them just a transmog thing
Dude.
ultimately.
So my biggest problem with this in Dragonflight has been the acquisition. Obviously, I have a problem with the power stuff, whatever. That can be fixed, though. The acquisition cannot really be fixed. I really hated the fact that we came off of Shadowlands where there were legendaries. There were legendaries. There was a legendary bow. There were daggers. Or I guess the daggers weren't legendary, but I mean, they might as well have been. I Why didn't we just do that again? Like, why did we take the same system for the bow, apply it here, where like the first mythic kill got it? Actually, I don't even know if that was true with Sylvanas. Either way, it was ultra rare, and then it was ultra rare to get an item that you then had to go do a quest, which was like an entire day's worth of fucking grinding super
And
balloons, and then
money, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and another 500k or whatever it was at the time when you got it. And like, why did it not just drop the item? Like, at the very least, it should have just dropped the fucking item. Just drop the axe,
Yeah.
not drop an item then to go do a bunch of shit by
Yeah.
yourself. Because like when it was dropping items for things in the past, like the main thing that I'm gonna look at is like the Terragosa stuff. I think that was done like perfectly because it was, you got an item, you had a couple of things you needed to do outside of raid. You had to go buy your your timeless sands or whatever the hell it's called, and you had to do that. But then the rest of it was done in raid with your guild collectively, and that worked. But it wasn't, to get started, it wasn't rare. Like, to get
Mhm.
started, you just did it, and then you started handing out these things to people. But to get Firalath and to get Nazaro, the evoker one, it was rare to get the item to get started, and then you had a long trek to get it completed, but it was a long trek by yourself. And
Yeah.
I feel like that was just bad. Like, we should have just dropped the item at this point. And that's what they did in Shadowlands. And I really don't know why they didn't just do that again, because the legendary bow off Sylvanas just dropped. Like, it was just every time you loot the chest after you kill Sylvanas, you have a chance for the bow. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's one thing I will say is way back, way back. Take your mind back to when you were a mere toddler. Um, the year is 2002, I think. And EverQuest had a system called Epic Weapons, and essentially what this was is every class got one, and it was a very lengthy quest chain involving killing multiple mobs across the game. Some of these things could be done solo. Some of these things needed your raid group to go kill a hard raid boss and get them. Some of them were rare drops. Some of them dropped every time. But you did this quest over the course of a long time. I think that the closest comparison is the very early legendaries in World of Warcraft, right? I think like the Thunder Fury was kind of built off of this philosophy. Like when they were building the first legendaries in World of Warcraft, they took the epic weapon quest from EverQuest and kind of built it off this. And there's a part of me that's like, man, can't we just do that again? Like there is something cool to the idea of like I played a magician in that game, which is like a pet class, and like my epic weapon, the pet class that also summons thing. So my epic weapon was actually like a spell that just summoned a weapon that I could equip, and it would like disappear after you logged out after 30 minutes, but you could always just recast or resummon. And the spell had an on use that just summoned an exclusive pet to the weapon that was like the best pet in the game, and it was a incredibly challenging, frustrating quest that took way too long. I'm not saying repeat those parts of it, but the parts I liked were like getting your group together and being like, hey, can we go to this place and kill this thing for me because I need this drop for my epic weapon quest? And everyone would be like, yeah, we'll get together, we'll do that together and go do that. And then you pay it forward for the next person, they're on this part in their quest chain and they need this to kill, and they're like, yeah, we'll all go do that together. That is something that I think it would be different. It wouldn't be the same, but you could kind of transport that into World of Warcraft in a way,
Hmm.
um, that you could have and I didn't play Legion, but I feel like they kind of sort of tried to do that with Legion a little bit, sort of, because you get this weapon at the beginning and you're leveling it and growing it over the course of the expansion. But I feel like that would be a way of making the progression of this fun, and also and have because I think it's okay if there are some solo things that you can do over the course of
Yes.
this. It doesn't all have to be, kill raid bosses, get enough shards, get weapon. It can be
Yep.
like fun, interesting lore stuff. And they tried to do that, I think. Like part of the quest that you had to do for Fearlath were like lore stuff, right? Um, but it
Yeah, I had to invite you to a group and have you heal me for like 30 minutes.
yeah, but ultimately, I think there's a way of possibly, and I think they could go back to that epic weapon thing. They could go back to the systems that they've used in the game before. I think there are plenty examples of how to do this in a way that feels epic, legendary, but also satisfying. And like I don't know, long quest chains I think are fun. Um, if they're not too frustrating. I think they're
Hmm.
fun, and I think people enjoy doing like it. I have a lot of fond memories, and I don't think it's just nostalgia of being like, okay, today in the game, nothing's going on with my friends. I'm just gonna go to this place, and I'm just gonna camp this mob for a couple hours to see if I can get that one piece I need, and then like checking your notes to make sure where does it spawn, and I think there's room for that in this game still. Despite everything, I think there's still room for that, and I would like to see them try something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I have no problems if we go back to a system of legendaries where everybody can like slowly work towards one.
Hmm.
I think the last time that I can remember that really being a thing was in Mists of Pandaria with the legendary cloak, because everybody got the cloak, and then it was something that you slowly work towards. I mean, I
Yeah,
guess there was the rings and warlords, so like it's happened before.
yeah,
So I would be fine going back to that. Um, I think that if we're doing it for specific classes, we need to revisit kind of what it means to have a legendary weapon in the game now.
yeah.
Um, because tying power to it, I think, is a very dangerous, slippery slope at this point. And the way that the game is structured to be seasonal,
Yeah.
um,
It's,
I think that's the biggest drawback.
I also think like the biggest problem with what I'm proposing is in a game that's seasonal, in a game that is you're at the certain item level for 6 months. Like doing an extended quest chain doesn't make any fucking sense anymore because
Mhm.
you're just gonna grow beyond the thing so quickly. Um, so I mean, ultimately, here's ultimately what I think, and maybe this is lame. What if they're just transmogs, man? Like ultimately, what if it's just about getting a weapon that is designed to look completely unique, completely different, eye catching? Like ultimately, like that is, I think, more than the effect, more than the numbers, that is why people like legendaries, because the guy sitting there with Thunder Fury, like you can tell that's Thunder Fury. It's nothing else in the game looks like that. Nothing else in the game looks like this axe. Nothing like I think the exception to this one is the fucking evoker one, which I we've seen people wear it, but it's just I've never noticed it. Like it's
Claw.
just yeah, it's just a little dinky claw. I like good for them, but um like
So
I think it's okay if it's just a cool transmog thing.
I agree because people do ultimates in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, no, 100%. That is the comparison point. That um and transmog is timeless. Transmog is you're not going to grow beyond it. You're not going to have to put the weapon in your bank. Like you got this legendary, Tevin. You finally got it. How many weeks did we play the game with you having your legendary?
Not a lot because it took me fucking. I didn't get it until they reduce the drop rate
Yeah,
or
they like
just increase the drop rate.
massively increased the drop rate as the season was winding to an end. And technically, this is one of the unique seasons where you could have like, if we had played a lot of season 4, you could have like upgraded it, and it would still been your BIS at the end of season 4, which is not going to always happen. But it just like the part of it that matters is I got it. Look, everyone, look. I'm gonna stand in town. Look, it's my axe. You see my it's on fire. It's my fire axe. Look at me. I got it. Aren't I cool? And then we're like, yeah. Oh my god, you're so cool. Oh my god, you're so much better at this game than me. Oh my god. I mean, that's
I,
definitely part of it. I mean,
so I'm happy, right? Like I'm happy I got it. I was relieved at the time. And it took too long. I mean, our guild got AOTC and stopped raiding, and I didn't even get to do our AOTC kill on my paladin. So it took me 14 weeks to get it.
mhm,
Every single Ferret kill was not with a guild. Every single one.
yeah,
And that sucked. I mean,
yeah,
it got to the point where like pugging it was not worth my time. And I could just pay the excess of gold that I had and just buy a carry, and I could do it, and then I could AFK, I could go watch a video, whatever, and like that was it. Perfectly capable of killing Farak. I've killed him multiple times in pugs. I killed him in AOTC. Like, but it was almost more beneficial for me to just pay somebody to carry me through it so that I didn't have to spend the entire it 9 times out of 10 when I was pugging for Ek, it took me an entire day because one, nobody wants to invite people who need the fucking legendary because half their group is people who need the fucking legendary. And then two, finding a group that's competent enough to actually do Farak, which has a lot of moving parts to it.
yeah.
So it was just more beneficial for me to buy a carry. And
Mhm.
like that feels bad. As somebody who does PvE as their end game in this game, I don't like the fact that like it was just better for me to AFK the fucking boss.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I didn't like that.
yep.
So
Transmog. I'm going beyond that. Mythic, all cosmetic. Get rid of all the gear. We don't need everything cosmetic. Heroic is the top tier. Get rid of myth track. Let's do it. Let's fucking do it, man.
I don't know about that one. We'll have to maybe go back to cooking on that one a little
I don't
bit.
know how committed I am to that. I do think people are motivated. Like I mean, there's like a weird thing, especially about these legendaries. And I've always had this in the back of my head, and I was like, well, why does this matter? Like, if you need to be killing the final boss in the raid to get the thing that gets you the legendary, then it's not doing anything for you. I've already won. I've killed the guy. I won. I did it. Um, so all this is for like technically we now live in a world in which Mythic Plus is a thing, so that's not entirely true. That the axe does help you in further progression, but outside of that, like the thing you would want the legendary weapon for most is killing the final boss, right? Like that should be like the goal should be like I want the best possible equipment to give me the best possible shot at killing the biggest bad guy. And in this seasonal game we live in now, that's just not the case anymore because
Mhm.
like you're gonna kill the bad guy, you're gonna get your thing over a certain amount of time, and that thing you get is probably not going to be worth anything by the time you get to the next bad guy. You're probably going to have something better at that point, and so you're never really getting a weapon that's going to make the next tier easier, essentially.
Mm.
Which in my mind just says, okay, well then all that we care about is what it looks like. So let's just make it a look like thing, and then that's it.
Yeah. Well, I think as far as legendaries are concerned, I've really aired my grievances with them.
You
I
have.
again, I'm happy I have it. I can funnily enough transmog it on my hunter, so if I end up playing survival, that's kind of funny.
I'm sorry. What?
Yeah, I can have the
It's a
axe.
strength weapon.
I can have the axe on my hunter.
It's a strength weapon.
It doesn't matter. It's an axe. It's a two-handed axe. Hunters can use two-handed axes.
Okay, they've gone too far. I retract everything I just said.
But so I have one more thing here, and it's what slipped my mind. We're not going to cover it this week, so I did just want to bring it up. You might have seen, for anybody who cares about Mythic Plus. There's a game that's kind of just Mythic Plus, the game that's coming out. It's called Fellowship. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think both you and I have signed up to potentially be in the beta. If they end up picking us, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But again, we'll probably talk on that a little bit more next week
I
because
think
I
this is a
really
great
don't know where.
topic. Yeah. I think this is a great topic for next week, whether or not we get into the closed beta or not. Hopeful. Um, I think maybe just generally talking about like what a game that is just the Mythic Plus system would look like, whether that's ultimately like a good thing or not. Whether that would be something we would do over playing this game, for instance, if done well. Um, I think that's like a good philosophical discussion to have. So it would be a
Mhm.
great companion piece to our review of closed beta weekend if we get in.
Well, we'll see what ends up happening because I think that as far as this week's concerned, that's really all we have time for. But I did just want to give you a little sneak peek because that was the last bullet point that I had.
Mhm.
So I do think that that will be a good topic for next week, where there's not really a ton going on until Thursday, when the expansion ultimately probably doesn't release until Friday because of maintenance. So yeah.
Yeah, I think on the 27th, when we record our episode 2 weeks from now, we're going to try a new experiment called playing the game while recording an episode. We're gonna see how that goes.
Yeah, I don't know that I'll be able to do that. I already struggle being able to kick things in a dungeon while also doing my rotation. So, but so for this week, that's all we have. The YouTube videos are all up. If you are watching this on YouTube, hi, happy to see you. But every single video is up. This one will be going up tomorrow at the same time that the hopefully podcast goes up. I want to try and schedule all of them to be at the same time.
Don't
That might be a
overpromise,
little
man.
ambitious. So we'll see what happens. But consider going to YouTube, leaving a comment, leaving us a like, subscribing. All of that really helps. Maybe even answering this question in the comments. That would be really helpful. The main thing that I had for this episode is, do you think delves are going to be cool? Do you think they're going to be a nice endgame pillar, or do you think they're going to end up being Torghast, or do you think they're going to end up being like island expeditions where it's like they just are there? They're just kind of at the end of the expansion. So either people really didn't care about them at all or hate them. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you think they're going to end up being, and why.
Objection.
Uh,
He's leading the witness.
So again, you can contact us over at yelling into the void wow at gmail.com. The YouTube is at yelling into the void wow. Twitter is at into the void wow. And again, please think about checking out the YouTube.
Yeah, I think also we're going to be streaming on that YouTube probably once The War Within comes
Mm.
out. One of us will be. So make sure you follow us there to hang out with us while we stream. We can chat with y'all as we're exploring all these delves we're going to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
The streaming might also be on Twitch. We'll figure that out, but we'll definitely let you guys know.
Yeah. And make sure you subscribe to the podcast itself if you're listening to this via the audio format. You have to do it. You have to right now. We're on iTunes, Spotify. The podcast is on YouTube, as Tevin said. Look, we want to get into this fellowship game, and the way we do that is by becoming rich and famous content creators, and then they just give us keys. And the only way we can do that is through you. So you have to subscribe, because then they'll go, oh, let's give these guys keys. Let's do it. It's in your hands. If I don't get into that beta, it's your fault.
So the other thing is please consider checking out pretty much everything else that we have. I've been running polls on both YouTube and our Twitter, or X, the everything app, whatever you want to call it. So definitely check those out. And again, the reason we ask these questions at the end is because we want to hear what you guys have to say. So please, either email us or leave a comment or something like that. Let us interact with you guys a little bit, and maybe that will lead into more interactions while we're streaming. So obviously anything that you guys do helps us get more exposure and everything like that. So thank you. And I think until next time, we'll just be over here yelling into the void.